Hey, I'm Rachel, the CEO of Intrinio. If you're a fintech founder, engineer, data scientist, quant, investor, market data manager, or a project lead at any financial institution, or if you are building an investment style app, this video is for you. You are most likely going to need to acquire data for whatever it is that you're building. Stock price history, streaming options quotes, fundamental metrics, you name it. These data feeds can seem expensive depending on who you're talking to, and it can be tempting to think that you might just go scrape it off the internet or go straight to the source yourself, like the exchanges or the SECs. This is a common mistake because most people don't know what goes on behind the scenes to get reliable data delivered to end users. It's a whole business in and of itself. And it's worth investing in a good data partner so that you don't distract yourself from your mission by trying to wrangle all of the data on your own. We made this video so that you can see exactly what you are getting when you work with a data partner like Intrinio, and so that you can feel confident you're getting your money's worth by investing in good data. What really goes on behind the scenes at a financial data company? You're about to find out. All right, let's start with a very high-level overview. Here is a list of functions that a good financial data partner will take care of for you. Data sourcing, ETL, validation, standardization and cleaning, continuous updates, ongoing data quality, storage, compute, and networking, entitlements, permissioning, exchange relations and agreements, documentation, dev tools, product enhancements, and support. That's a lot. So what does all of that mean and why do you need it? Let's start by talking about the big picture. Here's how most people are used to seeing financial data: inside of an app, on a website, on the news, or in a trading model. Now let's zoom in and see how it got there. Under the hood is a very sophisticated and expensive process involving all of the steps we just outlined, which we are going to break down one by one for you. As we do, you'll start to see that if you aren't in the business of selling data, doing it on your own can be very expensive. Step number one in the process is data sourcing. This very first step may seem trivial because you know exactly what data you need already, right? But it takes time to stay on top of the latest trends, identify exactly where it's most efficient to source data from, and maintain relations with any of the source providers. Think the SEC or NASDAQ. It's also important to remember that data sourcing is an ongoing process. Exchanges, data providers, and vendors change their rules on a regular basis, and SEC regulations might mean that you need to find a new data source in a hurry. It takes a lot of work to stay on top of all of these data sources. Next up is the ETL process. This stands for extract, transform, and load. This is the technical term for the data integration process. You definitely need an experienced engineer on this, since it involves connecting to the source and getting the data loaded into a database. It's not wildly complex from an engineering perspective, but it does take time, talent, and resources. Just like data sourcing, you can't just build an integration and forget about it unless you work with an experienced provider. Field names, update frequencies, FTP or API protocols, and scraped sources, it all changes frequently. A good provider will avoid these changes, but free or cheap sources will not, and you will need to invest in developer resources to make sure your integration doesn't fail. After the data is loaded into a database, there are multiple ways that it needs to be validated, and this is the next step in the process. For example, are there any duplications in the data that need to be removed? Are the right dates attached to the data points? Does everything add up the way it should? Are there any crazy outliers? Did we correctly infer associations between different pieces of data? This can often be automated, but it requires fine-tuning, updating, energy, talent, time, and resources. An experienced data provider will handle this process before the data gets to your team, reducing the time and money that you need to spend, making sure data is correct before it reaches your end users. Validation is just one piece of the puzzle after getting your hands on the data. Standardization is the next step. This is especially important for complex historical data sets like fundamental data, but it does apply to all data sets. For example, has a company changed the way that they file their income statement and is reporting a line item in a different place? Is operating revenue not adding up? That data is going to need to be standardized so that it's comparable across companies and time periods. Another example, you might see crazy outliers in a stock price data set that just don't make sense. Trust me when I say that to keep standardization and cleaning of data up and running requires specialty engineering skills and advanced tools like machine learning and complex algorithmic processing. It's a pretty big lift. Even keeping up with ticker changes can be a full-time job. Every month, hundreds of companies are acquired, go out of business, or change tickers. A data provider will update these tickers and other metadata for you, but if you try to manage it yourself, you will need to dedicate daily staff hours to making sure that your data is standardized, classified, and tagged properly. Sourcing, storing, validation, and standardizing and cleaning data is great, but that also needs to happen constantly. The data needs to be updated on a continuous basis. Again, this also can be automated in many cases, but it does require engineering work, money, and time. If something breaks in the integration, you sure as hell want to know that an engineer or a process will make sure that the file comes through. So, we just covered how it's necessary to continuously update the data. This means that the data can be changing at any time. So having a robust data quality system in place is paramount. For example, did a stock price come through a little wonky? Maybe it's a corporate action, a missed split, or a missed adjustment. Engineering solutions like an alert for a data point that shows up outside of a standard deviation are needed, or you're in big trouble. You must constantly monitor data that falls outside of what is expected and either react with automated systems or provide feedback to those who can handle fixing it manually. Keep in mind that the work required in every step we've gone through so far is required for every type of data that you are consuming, which can be dozens, if not hundreds, of data feeds. All of that data is going to need to be stored, which costs money. And I'm talking about terabytes of cloud storage. It's not cheap. In addition, the CPUs required for sourcing, ETL, validation, standardization, continuous updates, and data quality are nothing to balk at. Storage, compute, and networking can sink your time, energy, and bank accounts if it's not part of your core business. Intrinio is wise to these challenges and invests in pre-processing data and other methods to reduce our clients' processing and storage costs. If you go it alone or work with a low-quality provider, you might end up spending more on servers than you do on licensing data. Now, a quick side note. This is all a lot of engineering work that we're talking through, and you do not want your engineers wasting their time sourcing data in-house. These steps in the data management process require specific engineering skills. If your tech talent has to spend their time learning about it all and focusing on data management, it just distracts them and you from your own mission. Okay, now that we're through the back-end engineering parts of this data management journey, let's talk about following the rules. Not my favorite thing. Just getting your hands on the right data in the right format isn't enough to keep you from lawsuits or worse. Financial data can be a heavily regulated space, and if you aren't an expert in how to navigate it, you're going to need some help. There are 3 extremely important concepts in this category that a good data partner will handle for you: permissioning, entitlements, and exchange or vendor reporting. Let's start with permissioning and entitlements. If your data provider doesn't handle permissioning on your behalf, you're going to need to handle it internally, making sure only the correct users or teams have access to the data that you're pulling. This can be a big deal if you are only supposed to allow access to certain individuals or clients. Most data vendors or sources have different pricing and rules for internal and external use and for individual and business use. Sometimes this is called entitlement, and it's very, very, very important in the data industry. A data provider won't let you mess this up, but if you handle it yourselves, you are on the hook to make sure you get it right. Next up, exchange relations and agreements. If you want the details on just how complicated stock exchanges, stock market data, and exchange rules are, take a look at our video series, Market Data 101. The TLDR, working with stock exchanges is complicated. If the data that you need originates from a stock exchange, you are most likely going to have to navigate stock exchange agreements, which are massive legal documents. You'll then have to actually get approved to access the data. You'll probably have to pay exchange fees, pay per user fees, and more. You'll also have to monitor for any legal or regulatory changes. For example, the stock exchange MEMX just started requiring and charging exchange and per user fees, but it used to be free. So if you weren't paying attention, your business might have suddenly been out of compliance. A data partner can help walk you through these steps. They can own the relationship with the stock exchanges, and they can help make sure that you are following all of the rules. Doing all that on your own is needlessly complicated, time-consuming, and actually quite risky. Okay, still not convinced that it's worth working with a data partner to take care of all of this for you? Well, then let's talk about developer tools. If you manage to get a handle on everything we've covered so far by yourself, you're still going to probably need to wrap it up into internal APIs. Real-time data? You probably need to build something like a WebSocket in order to deliver this data to your platform, website, model, or wherever it's going. Developer tools are critical for data integrations, and a good data partner will also have that covered for you. But if you go it alone, you're going to have to build a lot of these tools by yourself. There's a reason that engineers love Intrinio, and if you choose a good data partner like us, we promise you that your engineers will love you too. Next up, documentation. Documentation is also critical, and any of your own developer tools that you build will have to be documented. Otherwise, if you have any turnover, your next team member will have to start from scratch. Trust me when I tell you that the SEC doesn't have their data warehouse documented. Neither does Yahoo Finance if you're attempting to just go scrape the data. None of the source data is pretty. And if you try to source your own data that way, the engineers navigating it for you will be flying blind without any source docs to work from. Good documentation can make all of the difference when you are integrating financial data. This includes software development kits, or SDKs. These are easy ways to get started pulling data in seconds, and they make developers very happy. Code samples, code tutorials, sample data, all of these resources are really important for engineers who are integrating financial data. Another critical process happening behind the scenes at a data company is the continuous enhancement of the data products and data feeds. New product features roll out from time to time that can be valuable additions to your investment models or provide new insights and information to your users. Without a team consistently focused on improving data feeds, your app, platform, or algo can run stale. Last, and definitely not least, is support. Things break. A lot. Most founders, engineers, product managers, and executives know this. Thinking of doing data on your own? There's not really going to be anyone for you to call. Your team can get derailed, sometimes for days, just figuring out where a missing file is, why an SDK just stopped working, whether your code could be optimized for lower latency, or how can you actually fill out this exchange paperwork? With the right data partner, like Intrinio, you have instant chat support and a dedicated account manager and sales engineer to help you navigate day-to-day issues. We even chat with some of our customers in Slack, we text them, and our ticketing response time is pretty nuts. The systems and processes that go into supporting data integrations are extremely robust. Guys, this is all a lot of work. So let's take one more look at the whole process behind the scenes of a financial data company. There is so much happening under the hood here to deliver you quality, reliable, and timely data. My team at Intrinio lives this process every single day. Call us crazy, but we actually kind of love it, and we love taking it off your hands so that you can focus on what you are really good at. Think about it. Would you design your own project management software or rebuild QuickBooks in order to keep your business going? When you take a trip, you don't build the airplane, you just buy the ticket. The same goes for data. If your business needs data, buy it. Don't build it. Let's divide and conquer so you can keep innovating and building the future of finance. If you are in need of a data partner to help with everything that we covered today, click one of the links in the video description to chat with our team. We're eager to help you out. If this video was useful, please be sure to like it and subscribe to our channel for more fintech and financial data content. Thanks for listening. We can't wait to see what you build when you get your hands on this data.